Brightfield on their pilot programme. I was a bit of an oddity, and I was self-aware that I was an oddity because I was very clear that I didn't want to take a traditional route to the senior leadership team. Move here. I'm really grateful to Brightfield because they have validated for me throughout these past couple of years and months that actually that was absolutely the right thing to do. I don't want a traditional route to the senior leadership team. The problem was that I teach at a comprehensive only comprehensive all-girls school in Oxfordshire, and there wasn't until recently a role on the senior leadership team for someone who wanted to take my route. So it was about being really creative about how I'd get to that role. So currently I am Head of Ethos and Student Leadership at Didcot Girls' School. Now, these are brilliant roles, and they feel like really luxurious roles. I feel like our school has reached a stage where we can now be really visionary about student leadership. One thing I knew for a fact was that I was passionate about all the amazing things, for example, that Mel talked about earlier for all of us. I'm passionate about conveying these messages to our young people and to our young girls. From my own personal experience, I identify as a very kind of global person. I was born in Pakistan. I then went and did my MA in Canada. I then came here and did a PhD in my teacher training. So handily, this role came up for me. Anyway, so just thinking about the leadership that we run then, I'll talk about the project in a second as well. It's values-based. So the first thing that I've had to do at Didcot Girls' School is kind of redefine leadership, because when you speak to 1,400 girls in an assembly and say, look, as a school we feel strongly about leadership, you'll invariably get people who come to you and say, well, actually, Dr. Khan, not really for me. I don't want to be a leader. I'll be fine. I'll be a follower. And the rest, and in that way, you run the risk of leadership becoming very exclusive, whilst actually the message we're giving out is that leadership is really inclusive. So the thing that I've had to convey to all of our students is, and they absolutely buy into this because I believe in this, is that there will always be that one person who you have to do a really damn good job of leading throughout your lives. They very quickly know that I'm talking about them. And I think that idea of making leadership into a life skill as opposed to an opportunity, I really like the idea of be a leader, don't wait for leadership. And so I find lots of different routes throughout the academic year when we're not teaching English and science for the students to gain leadership skills. And I knew that I wanted a one big event in the year that would allow students to really think about this. What Mel said about role models, I love that. I love hearing from people. I've got three and a half pages worth of notes from what you said, because all of that inspired me. Anyway, so for that, what we designed as an annual event, and we've now had 2 of these, is the Student Leadership Conference. We chime this with International Women's Day, so that kind of becomes the context for it. Anyway, so we planned this conference, took a lot of organisation, not least thinking about who's going to attend the conference, because we can't have 1,400 girls at a conference. That's not a conference. It's something else. It's an assembly. We couldn't have that. So we had to choose, and so had to think very carefully about, well, obviously we want our best and brightest to be there. So obviously, because gifted and talented had to be represented. We wanted people at the cusp of that kind of student leadership. people who needed that little push, but also really aware that wanted people premium, wanted SEND. Everyone kind of represented there. I cannot tell you what a brilliant success that conference was, because students have highlighted it as that one kind of event in the year that they have, that they can't forget, that they've loved. I suppose it was not just the idea of having the cultural capital and the investment and the engagement and the enrichment, but I think what students experienced and talked really well about experiencing later. I wish I'd done the kind of list of quotations that one of you had done just before this, but it was an epiphany, and that's what some students experienced. They sat there in the hall, listening to these range of amazing speakers, and something went off. And I think that's what happens to lots of us. And that's the thing that we're really grateful for. So it's the idea of choosing a relevant theme. So last year we went with journeys. So we had people amazing women who came and talked about their journeys. This year was creativity and innovation, which I was slightly ignorantly kind of using interchangeably until Ian spoke to me and said, well, actually, and then Ian was one of our guest speakers and he came and spoke about those two ideas really brilliantly. Students loved that. Yeah, a mix of kind of lectures and workshops, plenty of opportunity for Q&A as well. And then obviously a pupil voice survey to see how that went. And then the challenge of disseminating everything amazing that happened on that day to all the other students and staff as well, which I think we did well. But we've had some great speakers. So Susie D. Rohan-Wilner, who I met at one of these events, so this was brilliant for our networking. Joanna Rhodes, Dr. Joanna Rhodes, who works at Imperial College, has been a couple of times now, and she has been almost a single-handed force behind working on things like Ebola or the Zika virus. She's an amazing speaker. Amanda has been to all our conferences, my mentor Amanda Hassel at the back. Microsoft have actually, perhaps as a result of this conference, really picked us as a school they want to work with. So good things have come out of it. And obviously, last but absolutely not least, Ian came as a speaker to our conference as well. I mean, obviously, like I said, there are challenges, organisational. You know, recruiting speakers is the big one. So obviously, the idea of having backups for no show, ensuring that students are, because I think some of the messages that resonate with us don't resonate with you when you are between the ages of 13 and 18, because you're thinking about things in a very different way, and making the opportunity really widely available. It's now become an embedded part of our school year, which I'm really pleased about. I love the fact that students get exposure to a very professional conference, including opportunities for schmoozing and networking, which is brilliant, and very enjoyable, hugely informative, and like I said, you know, it allows students to think about ideas that were previously left untouched. When I joined up with Brightfield, one of the colleagues here will absolutely know what I'm talking about. Do you know that big wheel that we all sort of plotted ourselves on as our strengths and our weaknesses? And I know that I was very much on the bright yellow, so I was motivational, bright, vivacious, etc. I mean, I've got a jumpsuit on with yellow flowers on it today, you know, so that kind of sums up who I am. I very quickly realised that actually I need some things that need addressing in the way that I lead. And the conference was organised with a view to ticking off those things, that kind of forensic attention to detail, that kind of organisational slickness, which hopefully is kind of on its way now. But that's all I've got for you today. But thank you for listening.